you don't want the Hall of Presidents to leave Disney World. You'd have to make new ones.
Right. Speak for yourself.
Yeah. Right now, I would probably prefer one of those Hall of Presidents.
Could we get animatronic Andrew Jackson to be president?
Yeah. Even that would be better.
He's a racist animatronic son of a bitch, but he's our racist animatronic son of a bitch. Welcome to the Season 1 Holiday Debrief episode of Load In, Load Out. This week, I sat down with Cash and Ryan to close out our first season before a short holiday break. I discussed the first time I got hugged by a gentleman in sweaty lingerie. Cash observes as a bassist goes on a moral crusade in Japan. And Ryan gaslights Bill Doss into speed eating an apple. We'd like to thank you for listening. We'll be back in January with new episodes. So obviously this isn't a normal episode of the podcast.
So welcome to Load In, Load Out. Ryan.
I'm Cash.
And I'm Bill Fortenberry, the producer of Load In, Load Out, a Toy Story podcast produced in Athens, Georgia,
in association with Kindercore Industries.
Yeah. Our guest this week is, well, we're closing up season 1.
So when we started this, a couple weeks ago we had the episode that was, our 3 years ago or however many years ago it was, us proof of concepting this. And then we decided to do it in the beginning of the fall. Was it the end of August or the beginning of September, whenever we decided to do it? I don't think we just sort of like, let's do this. We're going to do it weekly and just let it ride and see what happens. Yeah. And we've come up on, we just finished 20 episodes. This is the 21st. And it's kind of cool. That's exciting.
Yeah.
We did that.
Yeah, and we're getting ready to break for the holiday for a few weeks. So we thought we'd get together and talk a little bit about the podcast itself, the last 20 episodes, kind of what we're up to. We may tell a couple of stories, but we'll probably fade in some Christmas music of some kind.
Yeah. We've got some Kindercore Christmas music.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Forgot about that. Like 3 CDs worth.
Yeah, totally.
I remember getting, like a little bit of history. Ryan and I met, but I was a huge Kindercore fan before we met.
Yeah.
And so that first and second, I never got the third one, but the first and second holiday CDs are two of my favorite, probably my very favorite holiday CDs. Actually, I don't really like holiday music.
The third one's pretty fantastic too. I'll give you a copy of it.
Yeah.
It
wasn't widely released though, right?
No. We did it through the website.
Yeah.
It came with a comic book at first, where there was only 100 of, because I had to print them and bind them and make them myself, and that was a fucking nightmare.
Right.
So I did 100 of them, and I was like, I'm fucking done with this, because of the printer running out of ink and printing some pages not the right direction, and so I decided back to back or whatever. Oh god. Anyway, don't try to make a comic book yourself. Get somebody else to do it.
And trained professionals.
Yeah, there are people that know how to do that, and you should let them.
But so I was coming to Athens a lot. At the time, I was in a band called Gospel Music.
Mm-hmm.
How did we meet? Who?
Sarah McDonald introduced us.
Was it right outside the 40 Watt the first time we met? And we ended up standing there talking for like 2 hours?
Yeah, something like that. Wherever we were introduced, we talked a bunch.
And it was one of those situations where it's like you met a friend
that you already knew, but you didn't know him.
Right, that you'd known for years, but you didn't know them.
That someday would interrupt you and finish your sentences on a podcast with you.
Yeah. But that's a good thing.
I need to work on that.
No.
But
that's we are having a conversation. That's
and then
fine.
Bill, came to Athens from good old Alabama.
We met on Twitter.
Yeah. You tell. I don't remember anything, as you know. So you tell the story.
Yeah, I mean, I have to tell a little bit about myself here, personally.
He loves to do that.
Yeah, it's awesome. That's why I'm hosting every single week.
Yeah, now we're like comfortably laying in Bill's comfort zone. We're right in the middle of it, like a big soft pillow.
I was active on social media because I was living in North Alabama with my mom in her basement. Make any joke you want.
Was she in the basement too, or just you?
No, it's a extremely.
She lived above ground.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was kind of drying out. I have an alcohol problem, and I was living away from all of it for a while. And by a while, I mean 5-6 years. And I met Ryan on Twitter. And I'm a recording engineer. I engineer the show. And I wanted to get back into it, and I had been sober for a while. And he gave me a chance to come and record his band. So I ended up coming over to Athens, where I've played a bunch in my life. And we ended up recording a show at the Caledonia. It was actually the Allison Weiss CD release show.
That's right. So you recorded a live show of ours before
we did the record.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Right.
Have you said that it was grape soda yet? I can't remember.
I have not.
Oh, was that a secret you were building up to?
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
Shit, I just walked all over your story.
No. So I came into town and somehow did a live recording for the opening band of a CD release show. Yeah. Logistically, maybe not the best plan. But it turned out well. You had a few drinks that night. And
what? No way.
Yes. A few brown liquor drinks were had. Not by me.
Yeah.
At that point. But we bonded heavily because we're both huge comic book fans.
Oh, yeah.
And we started talking about the sequence in the X-Men comic where they're all turned into babies in the Mojoverse.
Yeah, the X-Babies.
So we bonded over that. And then I came over the next couple of months to work on the record, kind of like bringing a laptop over with the recording rig.
Yeah.
I have to say, you didn't ask to hear anything I'd done or anything. You were super open to the idea that I knew what I was doing. Yeah. So I just kind of kept playing along.
We liked you. We trusted you. We figured, fuck it. Let's go with it.
I still like that album. It's good.
The Grape Soda album?
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite albums of all times.
Yeah, I don't like to toot my own horn, but that album sounds pretty good.
It sounds amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, everything about that album.
Yeah.
So I edited most of that record on a laptop while I was substitute teaching in North Alabama.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, that was an interesting time in my life.
I bet.
I had to go through it to get to where I am, which is really a much better place. But that's how Ryan and I met, and it was actually over political stuff on Twitter.
Yeah, that's right.
It just came up over time that like, oh, you do music too, or like I wasn't like you when I met Ryan. I had no idea, record label, who the person was. Yeah. Just like, this is a person who was nice to me online, and we seem to have some stuff in common. And I had been very, very isolated. So that's how I ended up here, and we all have a mutual friend, Lucas Jensen, who's played drums in a lot of Athens bands. Mm-hmm. He kind of let me kind of live with him for 6-8 months, kind of to get my feet under him.
You guys had grown up together, right?
Or we went to high school together. And it was just sort of like, we met, I guess had played the album at the Go Bar.
Yeah, we had a listening party. That's right.
And Lucas showed up for that and was sort of like, "Hey, man, how are you doing?" It's like, well, there have been some issues.
Some things have changed since high school.
I can't say that I've rolled a 20, every single day since then.
Yeah. Oh, also we played D&D.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We hope you've enjoyed the first season of our podcast. We'll be back in the new year with new guests, more stories, and heck, if we're not careful, we might just learn a thing or two. Head on over to iTunes and hit us with a review, or click your way to Kindercore.com, where you'll find tons of seasonally appropriate gifts, including the Kindercore Christmas compilations our musical selections are drawn from this week. We here at Load In, Load Out wish you and yours a happy holiday season and a safe new year. If you're in the Athens, Atlanta area, we'll be out at Cine on January 20th, Inauguration Day, for a showing of the bubblegum chewing, ass-kicking classic, They Live, plus a set of music from the reunited band The Buddy System. There's going to be a silent auction, and the whole event is going to support reproductive rights and abortion access here in Georgia. We now return you to our program.
So Bill, you never get to be in here, which I take it is something
by design.
You enjoy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So having put you on the spot,
I'm gonna put you on blast.
Yeah, you we have toured and we've told stories and stuff like that, and we've alluded to the fact that you've toured, I think, and it's maybe been mentioned, but we've never had a Bill story.
Absolutely.
You got a story?
Yeah, I got a couple.
You like that segue?
Sure. So I haven't toured as much, I think, as either of you, really, ultimately. And part of that is that I fell apart.
Yeah.
Like, chemically and psychologically, I was one of those people that went out and did it for a good while, and it finally ate me alive.
Yeah.
And part of the reason I'm fascinated with the process and talking about it is because it got the best of me.
Yeah.
It doesn't get the best of everybody, so I wouldn't discourage anyone from doing it.
But it is good to hear that this is the other side of it. Like, it does get the best of people.
Yeah, I guess the thing to say here is that, this story happened to me a long time ago. And the reason I don't have a ton of tour stories, although I do have a few that have been like 2010 forward. But some of it was just literally I wasn't out there doing it because I fell apart.
Yeah.
However, before it all fell apart on me, when I was 15 years old, rock and roll was all I wanted to do. It was an all-consuming obsession.
Yeah.
And I was able to join a band with a bunch of guys that were 20 to 24 when I was 15 or 16.
Which to us, it's like, oh, they're young, but to a 15-year-old, like, those are old dudes.
Totally.
I mean, the thing is, I was starting to listen to a lot of jazz and a lot of jazz musicians, even though this was a loud alternative rock band. But I was hearing older musicians say, you need to play with people who are better than you.
Right.
And at that point, that meant people with more experience. I had gotten into the technical aspects. I play bass guitar and got way into it, just obsessed. No cigarettes, no alcohol, no marijuana. I won't just rock and roll. I didn't call myself straight edge or anything. It just didn't occur to me.
I didn't start drinking or anything until I was 25. I didn't smoke or drink, but I didn't call myself straight edge.
Yeah, I just wanted to play rock and roll, and it seemed counterintuitive. I
also didn't call myself straight edge. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, anyway, it was a big deal. Like, a friend of mine got to sit in with a band or to try out for a band called Spray Truck. And this was Auburn, Alabama, the early 1990s. The band that was just getting cranked up and kind of blowing everyone's minds at the point was Manor Astroman, who just kind of like started to play out.
Yeah.
And they were
How could you not be fucking blown away by that?
Yeah. Right. So it was an exciting time. I mean, Manor Astroman got out of Auburn, Alabama really quick. No one that knew them ever begrudged them that.
And most people don't even realize that's where they're from.
The reason I play music is because of that band. I learned to play drums playing along to Destroy All Astromen.
Wow. I mean, it's hard to describe the intensity of that. We didn't have Auburn, Alabama is very much like Athens, Georgia, in that it's an SEC college town, but Auburn is a college town that seems to really hate the students. I mean, there's no particular culture in terms of clubs or restaurants, not the same way. It's getting better, but it's a very incremental process.
It's like the city exists in spite of the fact that there's a university there.
Absolutely. But we had a good house party scene.
Yeah.
There was a lot of Book Your Own Fucking Life bands coming through.
Yeah.
I would see
rock and roll.
Tons of that. And that varied week to week. Sometimes it was the best 3-chord punk band you'd ever seen in your life.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was the worst. But at least it gave me a lot of benchmarks for, like,
When as a kid, you got to see a bunch of stuff, which is a big deal.
Well, and getting to travel a little bit. I had to do a little bit of convincing. My dad died when I was pretty young, and my mom was kind of protective, and I pushed back pretty hard and finally got out on the road.
Yeah.
So sophomore year in high school forward, my life was on the weekends. The van would roll up that had the band. Spray Truck was the name of the band. Painted on the side of the van, and I would get in it, and we would go play.
The band name was painted on the side of the van?
Yes.
Oh, that's
awesome. It had Spray Truck painted.
That's a great idea.
Probably in house paint. And I believe the little postscript at the bottom was spreading the word and gospel of our Lord James Brown. Because it was alternative rock, but it was definitely, they were obsessed with James Brown, the older guys. And just as a bass player, it was great because we were playing alternative rock and the guys had some idea about groove. I had no idea about anything. I was 16. I was just excited to be there.
Yeah.
In fact, you can pretty much assume for the rest of this story that I'm very excited.
to you're just here. Stoked. A constant state of being stoked.
So I got out on the road with these guys. It wasn't like long 2-3 week jags or anything. We're talking about weekend warrior stuff, going out to do Hattiesburg and then Mobile and come home. But when you're 16 and
it doesn't matter. That's huge.
You're named Billy and you're from Alabama. This was a new world to me. I was seeing new things every weekend in terms of food, people, their conduct. Absolutely. Yeah. I can remember playing here at in Athens at a place called Hoyt Street Station and getting into an education debate with a probably 22-year-old co-ed about something I was feeling strident about, but thinking, I'm where I should be. This is fun stuff. But I think on one of the other episodes, someone mentioned the club Vincent Van Gogh.
Yeah.
So this story involves that club. And like the guest, and I forget who it was, but it was intimated to me that this club, most of its profits kind of had something to do with a particular powdered substance.
Right. Okay.
So
flour.
So
laundry detergent.
Sugar. No.
A powdered substance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everything was not on the up and up, was what I was told. But the club was called the Vincent Van Gogh, and this is all hearsay. I have no proof of anything. We had played there before, and it was the type of place that you could get double booked in. Like, this is pre-internet, and as we've talked on the show, that's a completely different world.
Right. You show up and someone fucked up and there's 2 shows happening at the same time.
Absolutely. At least on 2 other occasions, I can remember us being double booked at this club. It was the type of thing we would call to really try to confirm and nail down who the sound guy was going to be. Because, you were throwing yourself out into terra incognita, and who knew what was going to happen.
So I was on the powder, not on the music, probably.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Again, hearsay. I've never
Although there was a lot of great music that was coming through this club at the time. We got an opening slot, which is, what you want if you're starting out. You're opening for bands, trying to get some attention for what you're doing. And we got a slot opening for a band that was called the Impotent Sea Snakes.
Oh, yeah.
Who have something of a reputation. There may be some folks that know.
I definitely know the Impotent Sea Snakes.
At the time, I did not.
So you were going into this blind, you're like, I don't
absolutely
know.
blind. I mean, you play with a band and you look at the opener, the name of the band. It may tell you something, it may not.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like the Yellow Jackets.
Right. What does that mean? You don't know.
I mean, it means some smooth jazz is what it really means.
Okay.
But, the Yellow Jacket sounds like an aggressive band.
It does.
Like a punk band or something.
Yeah, go Google Yellow Jackets.
It's just guys wearing yellow jackets playing smooth
jazz.
It's
not. It's like Spyro Gyra.
Disappointed they don't wear yellow jackets.
They should.
They really should. Like real estate people that sell the big house and then they get a green jacket like Marge on The Simpsons.
Impotent Sea Snakes said something to me, but nothing like, I figured it's probably a punk rock band.
Yeah.
We were playing with a lot of punk rock bands.
Yeah.
And so we did our sound check. We were used to it kind of, I was very into the idea of I need to conduct myself properly. So I didn't play while everyone else was checking. I was always already obsessed with being kind of professional about it.
Which, just as a side note, there's nothing worse as a sound person or as a person in a band to have the noodler in the band. While you're trying to do sound check and you've got either the drummer who's like, boom, 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 or the guitarist noodler.
Yeah. I mean, it slows down the whole process and it's something if you know what you're doing, you can get it done. Yeah. So, I mean, I was already hip enough to realize there's a good way to go about this. But we got on and off. That's cool. We checked that out. And then they came out to set up all the stuff for the headliner, the Impotent Sea Snakes. And I knew from what they had brought in that they had a lot of stuff. Wow, something else is kind of going on here. But I first knew something was really, really going to happen when the bass player came out and adjusted his mic stand probably about 8 feet in the air.
Right.
And this was a club where the green room was behind and above the stage. There was a wooden staircase that walked up the side. And so, I was confused as to what was going to happen.
Yeah.
So we played our set, and we took our gear off. Our gear was set up in front of theirs. And there was a lot of stuff. They had put like a big piece of cardboard, big piece of plywood, like up on a stand. So it was facing the audience, but it was just blank plywood. And then the show started. All the lights dimmed. They had like sirens and some other stuff. And the bass player, who had earlier adjusted his mic stand 8 feet in the air, comes walking down the staircase. No big deal. They're taking the stage. Except he's on 4-foot stilts. So all of a sudden, here's this tiny fella on like some big stilts, and it makes sense why all of a sudden it's 8 and something feet in the air. Did I mention they were in lingerie?
No.
So later important. After this, the Impotent Sea Snakes would be featured on the show Real Sex, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
On, now I could be wrong about this. This is all from memory.
Yeah.
But yes, they were featured in that. The show, to say it was a little wild would be an understatement.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, they had a small African-American man in a leather thong cooking on a hibachi.
Okay.
They had a gentleman in a full jester's outfit with a closed face doing a spray painting on the piece of plywood they had set out.
Okay.
And then there was a lady who was walking around in a rubber dress and like flat face paint, handing out flowers to people in the audience during the set.
Okay.
So my name's Billy. I'm from Alabama.
Yeah, so super normal for you is what you're saying. This is just like Tuesday at home for dinner.
I mean, I was raised religious, but it's fair to say that I was a free thinker by then.
Right, yeah.
But I definitely had been cloistered in the sense that I had never seen anything like this.
There wasn't a lot of cross-dressing in your life at that point.
No, not at all. We were just starting to listen to David Bowie and be like, it's kind of cool that he does this androgynous thing. You know, Annie Lennox makes me feel stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, definitely, and you come to that sort of gender business in music a lot more than you do, I think, if you're a steel worker. It just so happens that you pop up on androgyny. You end up working with gay people.
Right.
So one way or the other, you kind of accept it to be part of it. But when you're 16 years old and you were raised in a very traditional environment, suffice it to say, I was learning a few things
that night
about the world.
Yeah, you had a crash course.
Yeah, that was a big warm up on it.
And the show was great. They did a cover of "Fuck the Police." I remember that.
Oh, wow.
There was some pyrotechnics, like old Who style.
Yeah.
Somebody
Explosion
put black powder in the
wow.
bass drum, kind of thing.
Wow.
And of course, it was. I mean, I found the show pretty influential just because it was one of the first times I had seen an independent act do something that was so all-encompassing that I could tell a story about it later.
Right. Yeah.
But, that went down, and the show was cool, and I enjoyed it. At the end, everybody's packing up. It's like 2:00 in the morning. Everyone's kind of like settling up bar tabs. The people there, the staff are kind of cleaning up pieces of bottle. They're going through a routine. Right. The clubs at that time of night can get really bright all of a sudden.
Oh, yeah, they just slam on the fluorescent lights, and you're just like, ah!
And so everyone's kind of, all my guys, dear people were moving out gear and such and loading stuff up. I always wanted to do my part. Hey, Mike, the singer, what can I do to serve Spray Truck the band right now? Oh man, go grab the cash for the night. We were making like $150.
Yeah, it's good.
Oh wow.
Thing. Yeah.
Well, this was the early '90s, so there was still a record industry.
There was more money. Yeah.
But it was one of those things. Go get the money. So I go up the staircase to the green room. Opening band, if you're not familiar, normally has some green room access, but not a ton.
Yeah, when you're opening for a real band, a band that has any kind of
you're sort of precluded from. Yeah, you're allowed on the stage, but don't get it twisted. You're probably not going to be hanging out with those guys in their green room drinking their liquor or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So, they sent me up to grab the cash. No big deal, but I have to admit, at 16, I can remember thinking like, all right, we're going to go.
Yeah. Okay, here we go.
And they were so incredibly warm about the whole thing. And the guy in front of me had taken off the bra and everything. So it's a large, sweaty guy in gray panties and garter. Like, hey, man, that was fucking awesome. We got to do that again, And so it's like, that was great. Mike sent me up here to get the money for the show. Hi, I'm Bill.
Yeah.
Give me a hug, man. So, and he gave me a big hug.
Yeah.
And, honestly, there are some things that, like, growing up in Alabama, I'm glad happened to me, or I read the right book at the right time to kind of, like, broaden my horizons. But I assure you, that night, being hugged by that gentleman, my horizons were broadened.
Yeah.
And they continued to be. Rock and roll is one of those things, touring, you kind of cut through all these socioeconomic classes. You end up in some really weird, nice places. You end up in some really strange, not so nice places.
Absolutely.
There are people who treat you like you are some sort of conquering hero. And then there are people that will treat you like you're the scum of the earth for even daring to do what you're doing.
Right.
And I find all that really
treat
fascinating.
You like it's a hobby of some sort. It's like, oh, that's cute.
Yeah. Dismissive.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is throughout history, artists, musicians, whatever, have always been people that like moved somewhat freely through different strata of society. Like you playing for rich people, playing for, you know what I mean?
And
like
that's why we're first against the wall.
Yeah, I mean, what could possibly go wrong now? And Cash, you've teased before that you had some stories from the Cadets in Japan, or some other.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some good ones from all over. I'm trying to think of specific ones from Japan. I mean, so
it doesn't have to be Japan.
No, that's fine. This one's a little kind of weird, but also really funny. And there's someone I want to get on the show at some point, and it's Chad Matheny.
Yeah, you mentioned him before. Yeah,
he does Emperor X now. I think he's pretty successful with Emperor X
on Bar None, right?
He was at one point.
Oh, never mind.
I think he still is.
Okay.
I know that he lives in Berlin now.
Oh.
And we're really close. The Cadets guys are all still extremely close. For example, we have an email thread between the five of us. Max Wood, who is not actually, he doesn't play instruments, but he's in the band. Chuck Smith, Isaac Bear, Chad Matheny, myself. And at one point, Mark Capon was our bassist, who now owns Harvest Records in Asheville. But he wasn't on this tour. He was on different tours, and I've got some great stories about him as well. But so we were touring up the East Coast, and this was shortly before Chad joined the band. Mark was in the band at this point, and this is getting to the Japanese story, but we played in D.C., which Chad was at American University.
Oh, okay.
And he had put out all these flyers that we were playing that members of Men Are Asher Man, Pavement, and Sebadoh is what he said.
Did he know that was wrong?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, we all grew up together.
Yeah. Oh,
but that was,
so you did know him. He was from Jacksonville,
Chad's from Jacksonville. Okay. We all grew up together. Chad was a big fan of the Cadets. He followed us around before he went off to college.
Okay.
Like, he's like a brother to me. Like, all of us are like brothers. But that was his way of trying to get people to come out to the show.
That's so funny.
And he said that he had a show for us. We get there wasn't actually a show. We had to break into like the auditorium and play without anybody knowing. But there was a shitload of kids there
because they thought
there was probably like 100 kids there. But they were all in the seats and going crazy,
thinking that you were.
But we weren't supposed to be having the show.
Yeah.
But in the audience was this kid named Matt Ellers. And after the show, he came up to us and was like, "Hey guys, would you want to play Japan?"
Yeah.
And we were like, "Oh yeah, sure, ha ha ha." Like, yeah, we'll play Japan, sure.
Yeah.
Japan, not thinking anything about it. And he's like, "Okay, let's exchange emails, blah blah blah."
Yeah.
And after that point, Chad had come back to Jacksonville. Mark Capon had left the band. I believe he went away to college. He went to James Madison University and helped start that festival Mac Rock there.
Oh, yeah. Kindercore was at the first one. We had a table there.
I think we played the first one because if Mark didn't start it, if Mark didn't start it, he helped keep it alive.
Okay,
one way or the other. Yeah. But anyway, so Chad joined the band, and as Chad joined the band, we started getting these emails from Matt Ellers. This is like 6 months to a year later.
Yeah,
and he had set up this Japanese tour.
Oh wow!
And we just kind of thought we were like, oh yeah, go ahead.
How old were you guys when this was happening?
This is 2001.
Okay,
so I was born in 1978, so I was like, what, 22?
Okay. So you weren't teenagers anymore?
Not anymore. Yeah. When we've been touring for a while.
Yeah.
But still, we were just like, oh yeah,
totally.
Some dude, whatever, you're going to set us up with a tour. Yeah, sure, go right ahead. And then we started getting this itinerary, and we're like, oh shit, we're going to Japan.
This is actually happening. Yeah. Okay.
No, and it's not like some label asked us over there or some venues. Just some guy who apparently we found out used to live in Japan.
Okay.
Who had connections there, set up this tour. And not only that, like, people who have toured Japan will understand what this means. It was a month-long tour in Japan.
Jesus Christ.
Right. Like,
oh my God.
People go house to house?
I mean, really? Where the fuck did you play?
People go to Japan and they play 2 or 3 dates, right?
Yeah, right.
We played for a month in Japan.
Oh my God.
All right, maybe a half of a week shy of a month, but still, let's call it a month.
3.5 weeks, something like that. Yeah. That's crazy.
And again, didn't know that was...
Didn't know that was crazy, right?
It was like, okay, yeah, a month in Japan. It's a whole country, whatever.
I mean, that seems like a long time for Europe.
Yeah.
So we get over there, and it's like show on, show off, or 2 shows on, 1 show off, and like we're having this thing where everywhere we go, you know, because we're an American band, people are coming out, but we're not a well-known American band, and also we're not like they liked punk rock over there at the time.
Right.
They liked something they could chant along to.
Yeah.
The Cadets are not like that.
Right.
Cadets, I don't want to toot my own horn here, but it's kind of complicated music. And I don't mean like musical prowess. I mean like to like the music, it's not easy music to like. Chuck's voice is strange. It's really
I feel the same way about my personality.
So we get over there, and again, I think I've said this before in the podcast, and I think someone disagreed with me. Maybe they just didn't like us, but we were told that they just don't clap over there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because Lenny, when we had Lenny from Kansas on, he was like, yeah, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. That's crazy, yeah.
But the guy that we were with, which oddly enough, this guy reconnected with me this year. Like just a couple months ago. His name was Yoshi, and we met him at the first show. He wasn't supposed to be our interpreter, but he ended up not going to work for the next 3 weeks and just came with us.
Oh, wow.
Because he was convinced that if he came with us, he could come to America and meet American women. That was his reason for going with us.
I mean, have you met American women? Yeah. They're pretty great.
Yeah, but he was obsessed with the idea of coming to America and meeting him. Even now, however many years later, 15, 16 years later, when I contacted him, he's like, I want to come over there and meet American women. Still.
Wow. Man.
But... So we're touring around and starting to realize, like, you know, we played 6 dates in Tokyo, all the different, like Shibuya and Shiba and all the different cool places in Tokyo. And then we played Kyoto. We played not only Yokohama, but Okayama, which is like a small little, which was the best show.
Yeah.
There was a small little venue that we played called Pepperland, I think is what it was called. But it was great, and like the people who owned it like cooked it for us because Chad was a vegetarian.
Oh yeah,
and so was Isaac. And I think they understand the concept of that now, but then they didn't understand the concept. Like, no, there's no meat in it. Yeah, but it's cooked with fish broth. Yeah, but there's no meat in it. Like, like whenever Yoshi would try to explain
seafood in it in Japan.
So like, Chad and Isaac we were staying at these different hostels. Like one of them was called the Apple House, which had all these weird paintings of like rabbits getting cut up and put into like going to be cooked. And I remember we always say this: cut your rabbit to shank. Like there was a mural in our room where it was this guy, different stages of cutting rabbits up to eat them. And one of them said, cut your rabby, R-A-B-B-Y, cut your rabby to shank. Yeah. So like,
and you're sleeping in this place?
Right. Yeah. And like 2 sets of bunk beds is what we were sleeping in.
Okay.
And I think there was another set of bunk bed with other people there that we didn't know because it was like a hostel type place. It was called the Apple House. And so, Isaac and Chad, there were several Apple houses around Japan, and we were staying in these types of places so that they could cook, because otherwise they're not eating. And I believe both of them lost 5 to 10 pounds.
Jeez.
Maybe even more. I mean, like, we have a video somewhere where the beginning of the video, Chad looks healthy. By the end, his face is all sunken in.
Day 43.
Right. Yeah. And he's not, his sentences aren't being formed completely. And I remember one of the last days I had taken one of those little fill-in Mad Libs.
Oh yeah.
And we're all doing Mad Libs. And like, I'm looking back now and it wasn't that funny, but we were all dying laughing because we're just delirious.
Yeah,
right.
Totally.
And we're sitting in the Apple House just laughing at these Mad Libs.
Yeah.
But so like trying to convey how things were. But the other thing, and this is the funniest story to me of the entire tour. Maybe it's not that funny, but again, Chad, you have to understand Chad. Like, he's a hard person to understand, but he is extremely intelligent. Like, I believe he perfected the SATs, got his degree in astrophysics. We're talking about this kind of a guy. He's the kind of person who, like, I remember in high school, there was this girl who we went to 2 different high schools, but it was like going to the same one. I went to Douglas Anderson, they went to Stanton. And, but we did, what do you call it? Field trips together and stuff
decoupage?
Like that. Yeah, we did decoupage. Yes. No, but so I remember there was this girl who was like a violin virtuoso, and Chad wanted to borrow her violin for a week, and came back being able to play the violin better than her after a week, having never played the violin before.
Jeez.
That's the kind of person we're talking about with Chad. So Chad's got this really cerebral, has really strong conviction, very strong morals, and so like in Japan you could find porn everywhere. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't really considered porn. Like, we would go and get comic books.
Right.
And me being the person I am, I was all about it. Like, these little comic books of, like, manga where it's like there's sexual things happening in these comic books. And I went and bought one, and I was going to bring some home. My friend, Sherry Torres, was really into like manga and stuff like that, so I was going to bring one home to her. She's a cop now. Which is really weird. But, so I had one with me, and I got one towards the beginning of the time because we went to go get something to eat, and I saw like on like a little shelf like these manga or whatever, and I picked one up, and not having really read through, just kind of flipped through it. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, it's a lot of sexual stuff. Like she'll be into this.
Yeah.
And so later on, Chad got one, and then we found in the comic there was one that was kind of, I don't want to say pedophilic.
Okay.
But the drawings looked like young people.
Sure.
Like, they weren't young people, but they looked like
arguably a hallmark of manga.
Right. The style was kind of... And once Chad realized that, he freaked out. He freaked out.
Yeah.
And took my copy and took his copy, and we were walking down the road. Now, mind you, we didn't have a bus. We didn't have a car. We didn't have anything. I had to borrow drums. We had to use everywhere we went.
Yeah.
And we had to carry this big box of merch with us everywhere we went. And we had to have all of our stuff, all of our clothes in our backpack, on our back, them carrying their guitars everywhere we went.
Yeah, so people don't understand that the logistics of a tour on that level is way different. People think you're always in a bus.
Right.
People are driving you around and attending to your basic needs.
No, you're taking trains.
Most of the time, other than the very top echelon of the music industry, or at least where you get to the level you're touring theaters consistently, you're responsible for all of the gear. You're responsible. And if you're going to Japan, it's very rare that you have the budget to be like, my drum set is coming with me.
Yeah, exactly.
No, all we had was their guitars. We didn't have their amps. So we're carrying all this on our backs, basically. And Chad is carrying his stuff, and I'm having to carry the big box of merch because Chad is so upset that he's screaming at the top of his lungs. I can't remember what it was, but it was something about, like, this cannot be accepted. How is this a part of the society? Makes me so angry. And taking each page out of the books, both books, and ripping them into shreds and throwing them into every garbage can that he can see because he's so angry about this.
It's pretty much the diametric opposite of when in Rome. It's like, I'm going to come to Rome and tell you that feeding Christians to lions is wrong.
Right. And this is the point that he decided that, we were basically playing karaoke bars, and we were doing karaoke for these people because they didn't give a shit, and then decided that he was very angry at the entire culture at the time because of this comic book, and started going around and like pretending like he was taking pictures of everybody.
Oh my God.
He just got angry. Like Chad was just done at that point. This is like 2 weeks in.
Oh my God. Wow. And he's malnourished because he hasn't been eating right.
He's not getting enough protein, so he's starting to get really hangry.
Right. So this is like, not normal Chad. He does get on his high horse, and he still does. And he's been back at that time. He didn't know how to handle himself. Like he wasn't socially, didn't know social cues. Like he plays like a nerd. Like we're talking about a guy who knows Klingon fluently.
Right.
Like he plays like a nerd. You think he's a nerd.
Who doesn't?
Right. But Chad growing up, and Chad that I knew and met was, nerds are cool now.
Right.
He was not cool then. None of us were.
Yeah.
He was a nerd.
Yeah.
Like, wasn't allowed to listen to music that wasn't Christian, like that kind of thing. Very nerdy, very like the kind of nerd that will argue with you about things. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And so he was
everybody's favorite nerd.
Right. He hadn't got to the point where he was Emperor. Emperor X hadn't started yet.
Yeah.
He hadn't gotten to the point. Well, no, the first album he recorded in 97, but then just sat on it. The funny thing is he pressed vinyl that he didn't show anybody for like 10 years. He had like 500 copies of that first album, Joy Taker's Rake.
That's crazy.
And no one saw copies of it for like 10 years.
That's crazy.
That's the kind of guy. So like, he's freaking out because he's malnourished, but he also has this really like stubborn in his ideals,
So did Japan change the culture? Well,
did he win?
Did he win?
No.
Or was it Japan's culture, thousands of years?
No, there was this band that at the time ended up doing a split with like one of the what's Conor Oberst's label called? Saddle Creek Bands.
Yeah.
I think they're called Eastern Youth or something like that. I think they did a split with Cursive, and we walked by, and this was a time when they were really big into neo-nationalism there. And some of the young bands as well.
That never goes bad.
It doesn't go well.
Yeah.
So like we would walk by and we got yelled at because we were in their country. Like we were white people in their country.
Oh, God.
And we were being screamed at. That was the other thing there that was bizarre. Is like in Tokyo and stuff like that, whatever, we blended in. But in like Okayama and stuff, people would literally come up to us and want to take pictures with us because they knew we were in a band because there's no other reason.
Why else would four American guys let that
well,
right there?
five because Matt Ellers was there with us. 5 scruffy looking white dudes walking around together with guitars. Obviously we're in a band, So we would literally get kids, like school kids, come up and want to take pictures with us and stuff.
That's so funny.
It was such a bizarre thing.
Yeah.
Because it's not like we were there because we deserved to be there. We weren't there because someone asked us there because we were a big band. No one gave a shit about us.
You were there because some crazy dude had an idea.
Right.
Yeah.
And we made money.
Yeah.
Because they did this thing where, like, if a band wanted to play with us and we were an American band, so the bands wanted to play with us, they had to sell tickets. And whatever band sold the most tickets, then they were the ones who got to play with us. So they sold a shitload of tickets.
Yeah.
And we got paid enough that we brought money home.
Yeah.
But still, I think we were like 2 days
amazing.
behind Modest Mouse everywhere we went.
Oh, weird.
Or sometimes we were a couple days ahead. And then also, I think it was Lois. Remember Lois?
Yeah.
She was either both of them were, so I would leave notes for them everywhere we went.
That's another fun tour pastime when you realize you're on the same circuit as somebody and you start writing notes for them backstage or on the flyers.
So I convinced the venues. I don't know if they ever got the notes, but specifically Lois, because I loved Modest Mouse, but I think they were ahead of us most of the time. But there was a few times I left notes for them, but I'd leave notes for Lois everywhere.
Yeah,
it was fun. Really funny. Several weeks ago we all played a show at the 40 Watt and we were all kind of backstage, and the recorded results of that.
Yeah, the episode.
But one thing you should know if you've never seen that area is it's covered in graffiti. Decades of graffiti from bands that you've heard of, and then a lot of bands that you've never heard of.
Yeah, some bands that played one show and wrote their name in giant letters, and then you find some giant band's name written tiny. That's always funny.
It's funny how that is there. But it's interesting to get to be in some of those spaces. There's a club in Nashville called the
Before
Exhibit.
we get away from 40 Watt, what I want to say is that this story didn't get recorded, but there's a spot in 40 Watt where Kurt Cobain signed it. and then someone peeled that off the wall, and I believe that Michael Stipe bought it. They were trying to sell it. Michael Stipe bought it back, and now it's pasted back onto this spot in the wall.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I mean, I've heard that too.
I saw it. It was like right in the back.
That's crazy.
But anyway,
it's funny because I remember having seen his name on the wall and assumed that somebody else had just written it.
No, it was him.
Yeah, that's really funny.
Someone had cut it out.
Yeah.
And was going to sell it on eBay. And Michael Stipe, supposedly the story goes, Michael Stipe bought it and brought it back and gave it back to him.
Interesting.
Anyway, go ahead.
Oh, nothing. I was just going to say it's intimidating sometimes when you go to play one of these historic clubs. The one I got to play a lot in the turn of the century, 01, 02, that kind of era, was the Exit Inn in Nashville. And they have all the names on the wall of the people who've played there. Right. And as you can imagine, it's a lot of great country and blues artists, pretty much everyone venerable that you've ever heard of. But then there are rock names like the Ramones and the Police, where you really start to kind of second guess for a moment.
Dude, I mean, one of the most insane things that I ever did was play at CBGB's, and that was fucking ridiculous before it went out, before it shut down, because I had seen one of my first live shows because I went to boarding school. I lived in the country before that up north, but I mean, I didn't get to go to shows when I was younger. I didn't get to start going to shows till I was in college. And of course I would see like, a big concert like Paul McCartney or the Grateful Dead or something like that when I was a kid. But yeah, I totally lost my train of thought. I was almost there.
But
I had a really salient point.
I mean, you think it's going to be this crazy place, and you go in and it's just a hole in the wall.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's kind of the version, it's like Rock's version of Wrigley Field, where you go in, it's smaller than you think it's going to be, but it feels like church for some reason. Yeah. It feels like some hallowed space. I think the first time I played the 40 watt was probably 05, somewhere in there. Uh-huh. And it was weird to get to go backstage because I grew up coming to shows there occasionally. Yeah. And to see that backstage area, it's kind of a gas. It's something not everybody gets to see.
Yeah, totally.
And those spaces are kind of interesting because the rules are loosened a little bit.
Right.
You'll find.
Yeah.
Maybe too much to record a podcast.
Yeah,
maybe that was the problem. Yeah. But yeah.
But it's like you're in these spaces where you're, and you have to think about that with some of the stages that you step onto, and if you can let it engulf you if you do, but like your idols have been in these places. They've sat on these couches. They've wandered these they've been hanging out in these little tiny rooms, may have slept in there, may have done nefarious things in there, and they're on the same, you've now shared a stage. Yeah. With these people.
So that lasts maybe 6 months. Like, you don't hold on to that forever. Because
although I will say, sometimes it comes back, because that CBGB show I was talking about, that was after having played tons and tons of shows, and then you stand on that stage and you look out in the room and you're like, holy shit.
I mean,
like, this is this place.
But
like,
New York's like the center of the universe, and that was like the center of the universe for a while. So
totally.
Forgiven.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely one of those.
I can just remember there's a club in Birmingham, Alabama called the Nick. And you start late there. It is the definition of a dive bar with a great set of bartenders, incredible jukebox. You're going to go on at 1 o'clock in the morning is like the first band. Right. But when I played there at 15 or 16, all I could think was like the Melvins have played here. Yeah. Jane's Addiction has played here. Like, so there were people that had played that club, but after we played it a whole bunch, it's just sort of like,
seems normal. Yeah.
Yeah. You get desensitized to the point that when we occasionally get to meet people who are quote unquote famous or well known, and the thing to realize about people who are notable is they are just human beings. And if you relate to them that way and don't make a big deal out of it, it's way more comfortable for everybody.
Well, definitely when I moved to Athens to go to college and I started going to shows, I just got it in my head that like all these people that were out there playing music that I was going to see were just people that were doing the same thing that I was trying to do. Right. And so I just started trying to meet every single one of them that I could, and just started, not to be like, oh, can I have your autograph or you're famous, but just to talk and be like, hey, what's, and I met like a lot of people on their, like back the week that the Loser single came out and he was on tour and his band had just shown up. The record label sent him a band, and he was like, these people don't even know my songs. And so they played like 4 songs together, and then he played for like an hour and a half by himself with a boombox. And, like it was great. But that realizing that and meeting people like that, it's really that is really cool.
Well, and if you've ever met someone that was on the upswing, you knew them before they were that person.
Yeah.
John Mayer used to play places in Auburn, like acoustic by himself, and it's like there's a dude over there playing guitar.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so people are just people, and they generally react better if you don't freak the fuck out when you
absolutely.
And a perfect example of that is having Cindy Wilson in here, and how awesome and humble was she? It's so like one of the biggest rock stars, arguably,
certainly in this town.
Yeah. I mean, but even on the world stage, I mean, she's high up there on the caliber. I mean, like, she played for 1 million people.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I thought the last episode was great, but my mom doesn't know who Jay Carbomb is.
Right.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite episodes, by the
absolutely.
way. Yeah, that
no,
was fucking great.
And it's been wonderful kind of this first season of the podcast because we've had people that are quote unquote, big names on, but we've also had some people that
nobody knows at all. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the whole idea is like, we are all sharing this. It doesn't matter if you've ever heard of their band or not. It doesn't matter if you like their music. It doesn't matter if you hate their music. It doesn't matter if they're huge like Cindy Wilson or like, no one knows who you are outside of Athens, like Jay Carbomb.
Actually, no, he's, but say Black Nerd Ninja might be a better example where he hasn't really done much touring, but yeah.
Sorry, Jay. But
yeah, don't fucking talk. I'm
just
kidding.
Oh, man.
But
we're all going to make people pissed, man.
Abort. Yeah. But, so it's like, but everyone has these things in common. We all have the same stories.
Absolutely.
We all have the same experiences. That's kind of what I really wanted to see is like, it doesn't matter what level you are. It doesn't matter what your music sounds like. We all have these stories and we can all relate to each other based off of these stories. And they're the greatest stories I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Our tour stories.
Absolutely.
And I mean, the thing that I think we haven't gotten yet is the show proper with us all kind of sitting here soberly discussing tour stories.
Yeah.
Or semi. Versus like the type of freewheeling nature it can get to at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
We haven't found the right balance quite.
I mean, it's hard to get that. And, you get, another thing that we've discussed, which can't remember if we've actually ever said it on the podcast, but that, when we started this, one of the things we thought of was that, there are a lot of tour stories, that nobody ever hears, blah, blah, blah. But there are still some tour stories that nobody's ever going to hear because you get there and you start telling them and you realize like, this is not a story to put out in front of the entire world to listen to.
Well, there was one from the 40 watt that we just had to be like, we can't.
We couldn't use it. It's a hilarious story. It is straight
one of the few stories that actually recorded that night.
Right. Yeah.
And it was fucking great.
Yeah. But it's one of those things that sometimes people overshare.
Yeah.
And that's great, but I also don't want to make Christmas difficult for
exactly.
anybody.
We're coming up on the holidays. Some people have to hang out with their families.
There's a couple of them. Like, I don't know how much time we have left, and I want to get a Ryan story in.
I got a short one. My story is real short.
But I got an overshare story.
Okay.
But you go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just gonna, at some point we're gonna have Justin and Matt, who I was in the agenda with, on. Most of my tour stories are with that band because we were insane. And so I'll save any of those tour stories until they come. Justin says that he still has his tour diary that has all of the dates and everything that happened. So that'll be really interesting. That might be a double bonus episode or something. But
right.
But anyway, there's this one story and it's whatever, it's short. It's not really a big deal, but it will never not make me laugh. It's about the Sunshine Fix, which I was in with Bill Doss, which was, I've mentioned before, was a big deal to me. Bill was, one of the main songwriters in the Olivia Tremor Control, one of my favorite bands, and it was a really big deal when I was asked to be in that band.
When I met him at their last show with you.
Yeah.
First time, the only time I ever met him.
Yeah.
Seemed like a very awesome, warm guy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
We talked for like 30 minutes or something, 30 minutes, an hour. We're sitting there talking.
I had some of the best times of my life hanging out and playing music and doing stuff with him. But one of the things that you might know from if you toured or even just traveling is that some states, I mean, I don't think California is the only state, but there are states that have fruit check stands.
Yeah.
Like where you're supposed to declare if you have produce with you, if you have fruit with you.
Some sort of rogue papaya.
But it's not, see, that's, okay, so here's where we get into it. It's not like, oh, you have a banana in your car, so you need to declare it. It's like, you have like 200 pounds of agricultural stuff in the back that you're not supposed to bring in the state because we have different laws as other states as far as pesticides and, whatever.
Right.
So there are these fruit check stations, and so we're driving through the desert. We're driving to California through, just through the desert on the way there. And it's late at night, and we're in this big van, and Bill has had this apple that, fruit is something that you don't get a lot on tour necessarily unless you seek it out. And I think at one point there was, somebody had some fruit backstage, and Bill had kept this apple, and he's like, I'm going to eat this apple. That's I'm going to save this apple for just the right time. And he kept talking about this apple to the point where it was like ridiculous. And the rest of us were like, okay, enough with the fucking apple.
Yeah.
So Kevin Sweeney, who I think I've told some stories about before, maybe, whatever. He's, funny, super sarcastic, guy. And he and I got it in our head that we were going to start giving Bill a hard time about this apple, and why he hadn't eaten it yet. And what was, the apple's a really big deal, Bill. Like, why haven't you eaten this apple yet? What's wrong with you? And so as we're driving, we see, of course, a sign for a fruit check stand on the way into California. And it's like fruit check stand 1 mile up the highway. And so Kevin and I are like, Bill, what the fuck, man?
The time is now.
Yeah, we're like, dude, this is serious. Like, Bill, this is like, this is a government check. This is like, they're going to stop us and like search the van for fruit. And like, you have an apple, and you got to get rid of that fucking apple. And so like Kevin and I don't remember who said whatever. We both started just giving him a hard time really quickly, because when we're driving, we're only like a mile or two away from the stand, and we're driving 60 miles an hour down the highway.
You have a minute.
It's like, dude, seriously, you gotta eat this fucking. And so actually, what I think we were like, no, just open the window, throw it out the window, just throw the apple out the window. And he's like, I can't waste this apple, man. It's a good apple, man. And we were just like, no, dude, no, just cut bait. It's time to go. Like we're almost there. Like this is getting too serious. And so Bill is just like, fuck it, I'm gonna eat it. And so he starts trying to eat this apple, like with he's got like 30 seconds to eat an apple before we get to the stand. And we're all, and Kevin and I are just playing it for everybody. Jesus, Bill, hurry! This is all of our lives you're taking into your hands.
God,
this is a big deal. Gotta eat that apple. And he's trying to eat this apple so fast, and he's like turning it around in his mouth, and there's apple chips flying everywhere, and there's more apple all over him than ever makes it into his mouth, right? So at this point, he could have put the fucking apple in his pocket, and no one would have known. At this point, he has chewed up apple all over his face and clothes. And so we pull up into this thing, and I don't remember. I want to say that I was driving. I don't remember, but we pull up, and the guy says, hey, do you have any fruit to declare? And either I or whoever it was goes, no. And he goes, okay, go ahead. And so we just kept going, and Bill was like, God damn it. He was so mad, because nobody knew all along that was going to be so.
I mean, it's always wonderful to hear stories of how people on tour with other people respect the quiet dignity of others.
Yeah, especially a long tour, man. That another, and just a capper on that is there was a member of the Sunshine Fix who just, no matter how many times you told him, no matter how many times it was brought up, every fucking day he would take his shoes off in the van, take his socks off in the van, play with his toes, and then put his feet up on Kevin Sweeney's pillow. No shoes, no socks. Just put his feet, But
that's about power and dominance. That's not about...
No. That's the weird thing is it wasn't. It was just this dude who wanted to be comfortable. Sweet guy. Greatest guy. Such a nice guy. It was hard to be mad at him. But, Kevin finally got really mad at him. He was just like, I'm not, no.
I won't tell the story in detail because it's embarrassing to me and everyone else involved. But there was a long string of pranks that went on with one band that I was involved with.
Nice.
That culminated in me having several bottle rockets and Roman candles fired at me in an enclosed hotel room at night, unaware. And I actually tapped out at that point and said, like, no joy for the rest of it. You've won.
Right.
I kind of like put the ointment on
this
my
is
burns.
The end.
And like,
It
can get severe. Shit gets real.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Speaking of Mac Rock, Mark Capon had left the band. And Chad was in the band at this point. Who else was in? No, Chad was not in the band. No. Mm-hmm. So Mark had left, and then Pete Cochran was still our bassist. Isaac was in the band. We went and played Mac Rock. It was before Chad joined. I think it was before any of the Japanese stuff happened. And so we were coming back from Mac Rock. We had Pete's girlfriend was with us. I'm trying to remember this correctly, but Pete's girlfriend was with us. Mark was driving back to Jacksonville with us to see his family, and it was really, really fucking cold, and we had the Rue van, which is, I'm not sure if we've ever posted a picture of it. I have a picture of it somewhere. We had a tour van.
I think I've seen a picture of it.
Yeah. We had a tour van that was a Rooster Country 107 van, which has a big airbrush rooster and a cowboy hat and tight jeans on the side. That's what we toured in. But there was no insulation. Like, it was like the metal on the inside was the metal on the outside, and it was cold as shit.
It's like my house.
And so we built this like really flimsy loft that would shift.
Oh yeah,
back and forth when we turned.
Because it wasn't bolted to the sides.
Right. So it would like shift and would like sway and stuff when we were sleeping up in it. And so we got to this hotel room, and as any touring band knows, and there's several stories I have about where like someone's like, how many people are with you, and they want to charge you by the amount of people that are with you.
There's one person, and then you let everybody in the back door.
Right.
Yeah, that was before they had security cameras everywhere.
But I don't know what you're insinuating, ma'am. I'm here to rent a single.
Right. But it was Chuck and Isaac, I believe, that were that were asleep in the van when we got there.
Yeah.
And so it was me, Pete, Holly, his girlfriend, and Mark all went in and got a hotel room, and they were asleep in the van. And so we go into the hotel room, and it starts snowing outside. Unbeknownst to us.
Yeah.
And they're back out in the van, not knowing that we got a hotel room.
They don't even know you're in a hotel.
Because they were asleep. It was Chuck and Isaac.
Nice.
And at like 3 o'clock in the morning, like we turned the heat on. So we were all like stripping down to our underwear because it was so fucking hot in the hotel room. And I remember at like 3 o'clock in the morning, we heard... and go out, and it's Chuck, like, shivering, looking at us, and it's like, I fucking hate you guys. What the fuck are you doing?
Did you wake us
like,
up, you assholes?
Just shivering at the door of the hotel room, and Isaac's still asleep in the van.
And he didn't wake him up.
He didn't wake up. And the four of us are, like, sweating in the hotel room.
In your sweat lodge.
You kick that pain. You kick the pain down to your bandmates. You totally don't wake the guy in the van.
No. Which now it's like seems mean, but at the time we're just like, whatever, they can just sleep in
it's
here.
Cool. Yeah, he's not gonna wake up.
He doesn't have any real pillows or real blankets. They're asleep on this flimsy
thing. He looks
thing.
comfortable. In the meantime, you go out, and it's like the last scene in The Shining.
Yeah. I will never forget the look on Chuck's face at that hotel room door. Yeah. And he didn't forgive me for years after that.
Yeah,
he still brought it up.
Well, that was, so this has been pretty awesome. I've really enjoyed doing this thing with you guys.
And if there's any bands out there and you want to tell disgusting tour stories when you're here, remind me of the South by Southwest tour story with the band called My Toy Heart, and I will tell you one of the grossest tour stories you've ever heard.
It seems like an unreasonable expectation to get guests to remind us of things. Though.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bring it up unless another band brings up something really gross, because I can't.
Oh, that'll happen.
Oh, yeah absolutely.
So, I mean, season 2, we're going to have more of the same in many ways. You know, there's going to be more people, and we're probably going to do some live shows, and we're probably going to launch some merchandise. And, if you have questions or any concerns about the show, but particularly if there's something you want us to ask.
Yeah, we've never done that before. That's what we've talked about.
Definitely hit us up via Twitter. We're at Load In, Load Out. We're at
Facebook, right?
On Facebook, as well. Get at us if there's something you'd like us to ask people. You know, we can't promise we'll answer a particular question with a particular guest, but we can at least give it a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Happy holidays, whatever your holidays are.
We'll probably be back in mid-January.
And get online. Tell us your favorite stories of your favorite people. We'd like to hear back from some of the people out there listening.
Write a review if you get a chance.
Yeah.
Tell your friends.
But, you know, overall, before any of that, have a happy holiday.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, thanks for listening.
Tell your friends and family that you love them and hold everybody close. Next year can't be much worse.
Yeah, who knows what the fuck's going to happen now.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
But yeah, Christmas time anyway. We're gonna take a break.
Yeah, we'll be recording episodes, but you know, we're gonna take some time.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do some time for the family over Christmas. But thank you for listening, and we will see you when we're back.
Bye.
All right. No, all right. Just like what I mean, I don't want the sleigh bells going with it. I just want it like it'll be like and then the hand claps come in. Well, let's just try it and see how it sounds, all right? Man, come on, Kyle.
What you're how you're talking about doing them. Not that I think there's any good way to do hand claps and sleigh bells.
You don't like hand claps? You never heard?
And that's it for season 1. We'd like to thank you again for listening, and we'd like to close out by thanking a crucial organization to our music community here in Athens, Georgia, and that's Nucci Space. They provide a host of services to a lot of people who need it around here, and we'd like to say thank you. Have a wonderful holiday, everyone, and we'll see you next year.